Hello, everyone. Very excited to be with you here this week. I'm Shawn Lesser with my guest this week, Dr. James Flowers.
Hey,
We're,
Shawn.
hey, James, we're with the Real Mental Health Break. So just going to give a minute on myself, then I'm going to hand it over to the fine doctor. So just a little bit about me and this show. I really appreciate folks listening to the show. So we have a host of different people from the medical side, entrepreneurs, athletes, a whole family offices, a whole host of folks talking about different topics around mental health. We really appreciate you listening. A little bit about me for the new folks. So, yeah, Shawn Lesser, born in Brooklyn, grew up in Long Island. On the kind of resume side, I did 15 years. I did international institutional equity sales. So I used to sell stocks overseas. And then in 2007, with a partner of mine, we started the first impact investing investment bank, helping impact and sustainable companies, funds, put on different convenings, had an online investor portal. That's all great. And then really on the like, why are you in mental health? Well, I had my own mental health episode where I had quite a journey, ended up in a psych ward, also went to two mental health facilities and got out. And then at that time, really wanted to help other folks because there's a lot of men, women, and families that have been suffering around mental health and started the Real. And that's also going to good translation over to what James is doing and his center. James, can you give a little background on who you are and what you do, and then we'll get into it a little bit more?
Yeah, you bet, Shawn. I think it fits perfectly with what you went through in your own life. James Flowers, it's good to see everybody here today. I'm glad you guys are all joining us. And Shawn, thanks so much for asking me to be here. I greatly appreciate it. And I have to say, I had the best breakfast with you in Houston a couple of weeks ago. I really enjoyed the conversation and learning more about you and learning more about this amazing organization and the plans that you have. So I'm super excited to be a small part of it and look forward to growing with you guys and really helping expand and see where this goes, because I think it's just going to be huge. So, my background, I'm born and raised in South Texas, grew up on a ranch in South Texas, and lived there until my father died when I was 10 years old. Had a heart attack in front of me at dinner the day that he took my sister to probably her third treatment center and dropped her off for treatment. And my dad was 40 years old. My sister was probably, let's see, if I was 10, she was probably 17, maybe 18 at that time. Took her to treatment, drove back home to the ranch and got out of the car, came in, had dinner, and dropped dead at the dinner table.
Wow.
And that was kind of, gosh, not even the beginning. I grew up in a very dysfunctional, my dad was an alcoholic, unfortunately. He was a workaholic. He was in the automobile business and a huge entrepreneur. And my mom and he married when they were 16 years old. And she was unfortunately addicted to Valium back in the 70s, 60s and 70s, when that was the thing for moms to do, which, by the way, now it's opiates that moms do.
Mm-hmm,
Back then
mm-hmm.
it was Valium. But so I grew up in this just severely dysfunctional, quite frankly, traumatized family. And I knew from a young age, I remember seeing it kind of as a movie, watching my drug addict sister, my alcoholic dad, and my mom who took prescription pills. And then later in college, my sister died from her addiction. A year later, another sister died that was a twin. And so I just knew that I wanted to do something different from an early age and did not want to be my dad, didn't want to be my mom, didn't want to be my family. I wanted to run as far away as I could. So I just dove down into school. Never missed a day of school from first grade to 12th grade. Kind of crazy, but that was kind of my escape back then. So I continued that all the way through my academic education and I developed a program called J Flowers Health Institute, and you were talking about having, a very successful career
Mm-hmm.
in I believe finance, right? Finance
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
background, of course, and and then having this mental moment that you eventually ended up saying, I have to go get help, and you were actually admitted into a psychiatric hospital.
Mm-hmm.
The average psychiatrist in the United States overwhelmingly average, really more than average, diagnoses a patient within 6 minutes of seeing the patient. Most of that is on a big screen like you and I are on today. They're sitting on one end of or at home or on a boat or somewhere else in the world, and they're evaluating this patient, and they're telling the psych hospital, here's the diagnosis. They're writing their prescription and faxing it over to the nurses. The nurse practitioners are listening. They tell the psychologist and the rest of the team what the diagnoses are, and they begin to treat based on these diagnoses made within 6 minutes of presentation, which is not okay with me. Overwhelmingly, hospital stays in this country or emergency room visits frequently. If you look at JAMA, the American Journal of Medical Association, frequently we see misdiagnosed individuals treated in hospitals and released. And then we see misdiagnosed mental health problems, overwhelmingly misdiagnosed. And when you have a misdiagnosis and you have a medication error because of the misdiagnosis, then our lives even begin to spiral even more. Sometimes they get it right. A lot of times they don't. You obviously had a successful trip, right? To the hospital stay, thank God. But so many people don't. So I founded J. Flowers Health Institute really primarily as the first stop to be a comprehensive diagnostic evaluation program. Houston, Texas is home to the largest medical center in the world, the Texas Medical Center. People from all over the world literally fly into Houston for their health care. Football players, athletes, celebrities, royalty. Our medical center was built in 1962 on the idea of cross-institutional collaboration. These days in Western medicine, we treat in silos. In other words, you go to 5 different docs. None of those docs talk to each other. So a lot of times we're going to have misdiagnoses also in the medical system. And so what we do at J. Flowers Health Institute is what we call a biopsychosocial, multidisciplinary, collaborative approach to 360 degrees of a person's life and really look at what the actual true diagnoses are. And we help families and individuals really truly understand the depth and the width of their diagnosis and then develop a treatment plan on how to treat and going forward.
No, that's incredible. And also, I don't want to get lost in it sounds like you're doing amazing work, but also just the journey, James, and the story behind that. And I know you were saying you're a good student, but I don't think the center just already kind of like popped up out of thin air. So what was the kind of the story behind that, and how did you go from point A to point B?
Yeah, you're right. No, it was a 20 some odd year growth for me. My mom always did teach me, James, you have to start at the bottom no matter where you are, and you have to work your way up. And that's the way to grow yourself as a human being, and that's the way to grow yourself as an individual and eventually as an entrepreneur or a person of integrity, is you start where you are and you do the right thing and you continue to step up. And that's what I did. Is after education, I was working here in Houston and at Methodist Hospital so many years ago, now 32 years ago, and received a phone call and went to work collaborating with and consulting with the Betty Ford Center many years ago, and building clinical pain programs and clinical complex disease management programs, and really helping the Betty Ford Center develop the preeminent institution that it is today. Of course, now it's Hazelden and what have you, which is amazing. But it was a long road for them to get started and really build this amazing program. And I was lucky enough to be a part of that. And that really launched my early career in this field of mental health and addiction. Other than my own family history and background professionally, out of my fellowship training, that's where I started. And then I went down to Arizona a few years later and built the complex disease management evaluation program, chronic pain program at Sierra Tucson, when it was owned by a family called the O'Donnell family, who was the original founder and builder of Sierra Tucson, which was at the time, really a preeminent, amazing addiction program in the United States. And then a couple of years later, left, came back to Houston, and went over to Vanderbilt Medical School and worked with Dr. Data in the pain department, and built another complex disease management program. They bought a mall called, I think it was called Thousand Oaks Mall in Nashville. We kind of designed and built that out, and it's an amazing program. The pain department and complex disease management program at Vanderbilt is still beyond reproach. It's just brilliant and amazing. And then came to Houston and did it for the largest hospital system in the Southwest. And then said, gosh, I've had an amazing career building for other people. And I love building and feeling like that entrepreneurial person, starting something from the bottom, right? And then really watching it grow and flourish. But I had done it for so many other people and said, let's do this for myself. And ended up building probably 3 or 4 different addiction and comorbid mental health treatment programs around the state of Texas. And then decided I thought, what is missing in the world of mental health and addiction? And in over 32 years, you see so many people struggle, and you see so many people relapse. And it kills me to see relapses. It kills me to see folks that I have worked with historically that will relapse. It kills me when you hear of people relapsing and dying, especially now with all the fentanyl and opiate use. And for years and years and years, you can look at different ways that people were dying of overdoses. But it would, so many times you can pinpoint it to a lack of diagnoses or an incorrect diagnosis. And I really think that we've had enough of that in this country, and we really need to focus and hone in on a more individualized, collaborative approach to medicine, to healthcare in general, to psychiatric medicine, to psychological medicine, and really look at everything in our system, from psychiatry to clinical psychology and neuropsychology, excuse me, to brain mapping, to nutrition and physical therapy, and really developing what I call a living MRI of our system, and then coming up with a concrete set of diagnoses as a team, and then really building this pathway to wellness. So no, I did not think of J. Flowers Health Institute and just come open it. It was really, truly a journey of about 28 years of seeing people do well, and then seeing other people not do well because of an incorrect diagnosis. And I still think today, in most psychiatric institutions, most addiction treatment centers, and many hospital systems, we have people from all over the world that fly into Houston and work with us at J. Flowers Health Institute, whose families have sent them because of not understanding why their loved one continues to struggle. And so we really help, kind of in a Sherlock Holmes way, of just tweezing through the minutia and helping families, and especially the patient and individual, understand what it is that they're suffering from, and then how to live and thrive in a healthy, wonderful life ahead of them.
No, that's super helpful, because I was in some of these treatment centers, and some of them are really the kind of a revolving door, right? So it was literally, and there were, I'm 55, but there were a lot of younger people in some of these, and it was almost like, what summer camp did you go to? Because they keep on going, and just like in this cycle. And in my mind, I was like, where does that end? Because it just
I think it's such a good point. I think it is a travesty. Again, I keep saying in our country, really probably worldwide, but definitely in the United States, insurance, for those that utilize their insurance, and even those that pay private pay, will go through a program in an addiction treatment center or a mental health treatment center, get out, and it may be a month, and it may be 6 months, and it may be a year or longer, and then relapse and end up going back to that treatment center. And I have seen treatment centers that literally will take a patient back 4, 5, and 6 times within the span of a year or year and a half. And I believe that is wrong. It's a travesty. If we're not doing the job right and we haven't done something, we're missing something, and we need to refer that person out somewhere else. Because that rewash that we see is a relapse for a reason that someone has not pinpointed why. And we needed, at that point, a different team, and a different expert set of eyes needs to lay their eyes and hands on this person and really understand why they're relapsing, so that it doesn't happen again. And most importantly, that we don't lose the person to either an overdose or accidental or some sort of death.
Yeah, I'm also curious at some of these centers, and I guess there's good ones and bad ones. There's also the economic side, like, oh, the person relapsed, they go back again. Like, what's the economic benefit to not have that happen, right? I hate to say that, but that happens.
No, it's part of the sick system, and I say sick, SICK. Part of the sick system of healthcare is, look, I think there are many amazing treatment programs in the country, and there are many programs that were built that someone became sober and 6 months later decided, you know what, I'm going to go to dad and mom and I'm going to build my own treatment program. And literally anywhere in the country, there is no license that an individual has to have to go open a treatment center. What they have to have is money and someone that's able to fill out an application and get a state license. And that is, to me, a really sad fact of the state of our world today in this industry. And I am not knocking the industry as a whole. What I'm knocking is look, I believe that 5 years is necessary of sobriety to even begin to think about helping other people as a professional, right? As in, I'm going to open a treatment center or a sober living home. You know, I see sober living homes all over the country that allow relapses and allow the people to continue to stay in sober living. I can name 10 people off the top of my head in sober living homes that have died, that either I have known that have gone through treatment or that are friends of friends that have died because of relapses in sober living. And every one of those sober living homes were people who may have opened them with a year or two of sobriety. And I think we need to have more regulation and we need to have tighter scrutiny on it. And I hope that that's coming down the system. But, you know, my philosophy, I come from academia, and I really believe that we need to look at mental health and addiction from an academic and scientific standpoint. I absolutely believe, like so many people do, that being in recovery helps. It is amazing. I love that so many treatment centers, that such a high percentage of staff is in recovery, but they should not be using that recovery center as their own recovery. They need to have their outside sponsor, their outside work, and take care of their recovery outside of work and let work be work. And I often see those lines mixed, and I see staff in treatment centers relapse and then bring down other staff members and other patients, unfortunately. So I think we need to have better regulation. We need to have better rules. We need to have better laws. And I see that in the best treatment centers, and I see it in, you know, rock bottom treatment centers. But overall, our industry as a whole has about a 70% relapse rate in the first year of recovery. And that's a federal government number. And I think that number is way too high. So I kind of took it out of a group-like setting at Flowers and really said, let's look at this, take this silo out of it, and let's look at it as a group of experts, as a group of academicians, a group of physicians, psychiatrists, psychologists, nutritionists, physical therapists, neurologists, neurosurgeons, orthopedic surgeons, and really any other specialist. And let's look at it as a team and communicate, collaborate, work together on how to achieve the greatest amount of success. And and when we're mentally well, we're going to be physically well. When we're physically ill, we're going to be mentally ill, right? It's going to affect our physical being. When it's not in a homeostasis, we begin to get depressed, anxious, sleep deprived, and that all bounces off each other, and we kind of go down a well. So I think we should look at it really more of a collaborative approach on an individual basis, and not have 16 to 20 people in a group, but work one-on-one with an individual. And that way you really do see the benefits of individualized and collaborative treatment, and allows you to uncover your own human condition, much like you did, and then go out and be successful in your life, successfully happy and mentally well. But not only mentally well, but mentally, spiritually, physically, and every other way as well.
So that brings up a different question for me, or a different way to talk about things, James, is you had, I'm going to call it a challenging upbringing, no doubt. No doubt at all, right? Challenging is probably, I'm sugarcoating it a little bit. Like how you, with yourself internally, how do you handle your own mental health? Because there was some, huge challenges that just on the, on the surface, deeper, there's all kinds of things.
Yeah, Shawn, that's an incredible question, and I think it's so important. One new way I'm going to be managing my own mental health is through your organization, by the way.
Good.
Doing some of these groups, so I'm super excited about that. But, something I want to say to everybody out there listening, right? Every one of us, whether we come from what we perceive as a Leave It to Beaver family, or whether we come from a family, just an average road family, or we come from high net worth families, every single family in the country has its own unique set of problems, and we are born with our own unique selves and our own personalities. And I really do believe that weekly therapy is an important part of my life. I sit every Tuesday morning from 10:45 to 11:45 with a psychiatrist, with this amazing woman that is so brilliant, that after knowing me as well as she does, can look at me and I can say something, and she'll just call me on my crap, right? And say, you want to say that again out loud?
Right.
And think about how you said it. But so I take care of myself. I exercise. I think exercise is a critical component to our life. I've run 28 marathons.
Wow.
I haven't run one in a few years because I have some arthritis in my knee that I'm working through. But I still go to the gym. I still exercise. I get my cardio. I do some minor, small weights, and I keep myself physically fit. But I also want to keep myself emotionally and spiritually fit as well. I use I'm going to give you a buzz thing. You know this right now. They're huge. And I broke down. I drank the Kool-Aid, and I bought a cold plunge.
Okay.
And I have, the Wim Hof method, right? So I have a cold plunge at my home now, and it's this incredible, great cold plunge. I keep the water at about 55 degrees. And every single morning when I wake up at 5:30, I make myself a cup of coffee, and I go straight outside with my coffee and set it next to the cold plunge. And I get into my cold plunge. I started it at 3 minutes, and now I'm up to 6.
Wow.
So I do that every day, and it really does start my day off well. And then I go exercise, and then I come straight to work. And but I think that staying fit mentally, physically, spiritually, and every other way that we can stay fit in a healthy way is important. But I also think, for me, having my own therapist allows me to have a completely disinterested, not really disinterested, but disinterested third independent ear that I can talk to and say, hey, this is what I'm struggling with this week, or this is what I went through last week, or maybe I responded a little too strongly to, whether it's a staff member, or whether it's a friend, or at home, or what have you. And we can work through those things and really look back. And every single time I do that with her, every time I have an event that can become depressing or stressful, when we talk about it, I can relate it all the way back to my childhood and almost pinpoint where that difficulty came from. And for me, it's just still jaw dropping that a lot of my challenges in life today go all the way back to childhood. And so I continue to resolve issues, and I think we all should continue to work in therapy.
No, that's interesting because I have a therapist, and that's every single time she's going back to like what happened when you were little, what happened with your family, this, that, the other thing. So
Yeah,
I guess those are the things that really they I don't know if the words train you, but you get conditioned for later in life. It's just
yeah,
that's normal. And I also can say just on this journey, I have had conversations with probably James, maybe 300 people, and every single person. This is never, mental health is never an issue that's 1 degree away. It's half a degrees or 0 degrees away from everybody.
yeah.
I was at a 10. It was a bad place, but everyone, and you know this better than anybody, was at a 2 or 4 or 6 at any time, because I'm sure you're getting a host of folks at different places, obviously at your center.
Yeah, absolutely. We see, gosh, everything here. We have folks that come here whose families have called and said, we just don't know what's going on with
Mm-hmm.
making this name up with Johnny, right?
Yeah, yeah,
And Johnny is isolating. Johnny is depressed. Johnny's married, has a wonderful wife, 3 kids, but there's something off, and we don't know what it is, and he doesn't know how to communicate it, and it comes
right.
out in the form of anger, it comes out as aggression, it comes out in drinking, it comes out in unfortunately sometimes in sexual ways.
Mm-hmm.
It comes out in all kinds of ways, and we've tried to get help. And so we just wrap ourselves around these folks in a setting that is extremely comfortable. And I believe that when we're doing an evaluation, the less anxiety an individual has, the more free they're going to be able to speak, and the more comfort they have with their therapist and their clinical team, is it makes them feel like they can say anything, in which they can,
Mm-hmm.
anything, and it really not go anywhere other than helping them uncover what it is that's the root issue and the root cause of their human condition,
Mm-hmm.
and then draw this roadmap of how they can go home or stay here and do treatment with us if necessary, and they want to do that, but really go home and thrive and live a happy, thriving life with their family. So we see it in mental health, we see it in addiction, we see it in unknown medical cases. One time we'll have to do one of these interviews, and I'd love to give you, 5 or 6 different case studies, because we see
Yeah,
so many unknown medical issues
right.
that are uncovered. And a lot of times, misdiagnoses, by the way, we can behave in a way that appears to a psychiatrist or a mental health professional that may look like bipolar disorder,
Mm-hmm.
but actually may be because some of our chemistry in our body is off medically, right?
Right,
And
right,
for
right.
women, it can be hormones. For men, it can be testosterone. It can be all kinds of things that when we check, we had a kid that was an A student at Duke who was institutionalized in a psychiatric hospital
Mm-hmm.
and diagnosed with schizophrenia and yanked out of his junior year at Duke. A student, top valedictorian of his high school, A student. His mom just kept saying, I don't believe my son's a schizophrenic. And the dad said, look, all these doctors at Duke and all the hospitals all the docs at the hospital are saying he's schizophrenic. Let them give him an antipsychotic and he's going to be okay. She did not agree with it. And she brought him to Houston, and we evaluated him. Our entire team evaluated him and said, look, I don't, let's rule out medical and let's do an MRI and just make sure everything's okay. This poor 20-year-old kid had a brain tumor, and he was at school when this brain tumor started growing, and he was behaving in ways that mirrored schizophrenia. And so he was sent for an evaluation at a psychiatric hospital. They institutionalized him, put him on antipsychotic medication. And the mom said, no, get him out. Let's figure out what else is going on. And if she hadn't done that, he probably would have died from
Wow.
this brain tumor. And we were able to find this brain tumor. They did surgery. They removed the tumor. And he's back. He finished. He graduated from college. Now he's working on his MBA and has never been happier in his life. But sometimes our mental health can come out in ways because of an unknown medical condition. So I always tell mental health professionals, rule out medical. Let's look at everything and see what we can do as a team instead of working in a silo.
No, that's helpful. So we're coming towards the end here, but I want to have that as a little bit of the takeaways here, that you have to rule out, multiple things when you're dealing with mental health and work as a team. Would that be fair to say?
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I think that this collaborative approach and working as a team effort and talking every day about what you're looking at, every hospital system in the country and every primary care doctor, unfortunately, feels too busy and overwhelmed to collaborate on a regular basis. So having something like this available to you, I think, is invaluable.
So James, we're about to end. Where can people find you, find information about the center? Where can they go? Where can they get the lowdown?
Yeah, jflowershealth.com is our website, and it's initial J, last name Flowers, Flowers, health.com, or my email is james@jflowershealth.com.
Awesome. Well, James, I want to appreciate you for getting real on the real, brother.
Yeah, Shawn, thank you so much. And I'm so proud of what you've been through and where you are today, and I want to come back.
More to come together. All right, everyone. Thanks again for listening. We appreciate it. See you,
Thanks, everybody.